Everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me once again this morning for tea time. Today we have a little bit of fireside. It's so good. It's actually cold down here this morning in South Florida. It's like freezing at about 58 degrees. Don't hate, don't hate. So anyways, have some fireside. It has that smokiness of the lap song in it. It's just so good. I hope you guys are joining me with your cup of tea or maybe a cup of coffee, or as I always say, something harder. Maybe some whiskey, some rum that I love. So anyways, guys, next generation cameras and global shutters, what they are, what they're not. Last week I saw a few different articles come out about this global shutter sensor that Sony was putting together. It was like 100 and some megapixels. And, you know, all this clamor. Well, if Sony's going to do that, then I'm sure that the new Canon 85 megapixel is going to be a global shutter also, blah, blah, blah. You know, these are people that are uneducated that talk about this stuff because it is just not possible as of today. And I'm going to get into that a little bit. Before I do, I want to say that if you haven't downloaded my ebook as of yet, go over to JCristina.com/ebook. Once again, JCristina.com/ebook. 10 tips at making tack sharp images. There's something there for everyone. Doesn't matter if you're a professional, an amateur, or a pro-am, somewhere in between, you're going to glean something from it, and it is absolutely free. So once again, JCristina.com/ebook. Go grab it. So what exactly is a global shutter? What it isn't? Why do we care about it? Why the next generation cameras will all have global shutters? And the first company to put it into a camera, it's going to be major. We're talking about big news, not this nonsense here, this speculation that there's a global shutter coming in at 85 megapixels and we're talking 100 and some. It's a bunch of nonsense. Anyways, our cameras, what you're using and what I'm using, scan, okay? They scan the sensor to capture the image, all right? That gives you that rolling shutter effect or that jello effect, okay? When you're taking photos of something that's moving quickly. I'm sure a lot of you have seen images of like props on an airplane spinning, okay? And they look like they're bent, they're bending, right? They're made out of like taffy or something. No, they're not. It's just that is what happens when you're capturing an image by a rolling shutter or by scanning over the sensor. Because what happens is as this thing is moving really fast, it starts scanning across the sensor and capturing these pixels, right? And by the time it gets to the end, to go and do it again for the next frame, remember at 24 frames per second, 30, 60, 120 frames per second. That's a lot of scanning, and that's fast, right, guys? Well, by the time it gets back to the first position to scan across the sensor again, well, the prop or the fan or whatever is moving fast, the tire rim or whatever, has already moved from the spot before it gets to the end. Instead of everything being stationary, it's moving and you're getting this bending because it's capturing it not fast enough to be able to get it to be stationary, all right? A quote, still image, but in video. So you get that rolling shutter, that jello effect, all right? So what does a global shutter do different? Well, instead of scanning over the sensor, it captures the entire sensor at a time. So if it was capturing 24 frames per second, it would capture an entire sensor 24 times. Same thing at 30 or at 60 or at 120, whatever, it's capturing the entire sensor's data. Okay, that could be 10 megapixels, 20 megapixels, 50 megapixels, a ton of data all at one time. So you end up not having that rolling shutter. Okay, so obviously this is going to be beneficial, and we see this in cameras already. But, and this is where the big but comes in. If you look at like a 6K RED digital cinema camera, it will capture 20 megapixels, but it uses a Super 35 sensor, not a big sensor. a Super 35 sensor. Just remember these sensor sizes, okay? And it's about $6,000, right? If you take a look at the Dream chip, which is the Atom camera, that camera has a 1-inch sensor. So I'm getting smaller. A 1-inch sensor, okay? And that is about $8,000. 1-inch sensor. Then you can move on to, like, for example, a DJI. They have this P4, I believe it's called. It's made for agricultural stuff. It is a drone that has a global shutter in it. What is it capturing? 2 megapixels. Okay, guys, 2 megapixels, it's $6,500. Think about the price, think about the size here. Think about the megapixels. Then you can take a look at like a Canon C700. You guys know that I shoot Canon C-series because I think they're awesome for video. Shoot 300s as well as the C500. The 700 GS has a global shutter in it, okay, which is amazing. But how many megapixels does it have? 9. Okay, so the Canon C700 GS has 9 megapixels. And it is a Super 35 sensor, once again, Super 35, and it costs $30,000. You see where we're going with this. Small, large in price. Small in sensor, small in megapixels, large in price. So when you see stuff like, oh, Canon is going to be coming out with an 85 megapixel global shutter and that we're going to get it, how much do you think that camera would cost? 85 megapixels, global shutter, right? Think about it. Well, Sony came out with this brand new global shutter, and it is about 127 megapixels. And this is what was all the rage. Everyone was talking about it. Okay, there was all kinds of in the forums. Oh, look at this, you know, it's this Pregis chip, and it used to be a 1.1 Pregis chip. Now they got this new one. If I remember correctly, the old chip was the IMX, I think it's a 253. This new one, this new 127 megapixel massive global shutter sensor that Sony is coming out with, it's an IMX, I think it's a 661, right? A 661. Regardless, yes, it is a new sensor. It is a global sensor. Yes, it is massive. It is huge. All right, it's almost the size or bigger than a medium format. Now, how do we know that? Well, I took a look at the sensor size that they're saying, this 127 megapixel sensor. The diagonal size of this sensor is 56.73 millimeters. 56, let's call it 57 millimeters. Now, how does this equate? I always like showing you, like just telling you so you understand the size. Let's call it 57 millimeters across the diagonal, okay? A Fujifilm GFX 100, for example, is 43 by 33 millimeters. The diagonal, if you do the math, you take one side and you square it, and you add it to the other side, that's squared, and you take the square root of the two, simple math, all right? You end up with the diagonal. You're looking at about 55 millimeters. So, Fujifilm's crop, let's call it medium format sensor, is slightly smaller than this big ass Sony sensor. That's a global shutter that they came up with, right? Think about it. It's massive. Now, in comparison to like a standard full frame sensor, that's 36 by 24. If you do the mathematics on that, you end up with about 43 millimeters. Now, if you look at a Blackmagic, all right, some people are like, oh, I like Blackmagic. Well, the Blackmagic uses an even smaller sensor. That Blackmagic, like a 6K or something, is using a sensor that's like 23 millimeters by, I believe, 13 millimeters. Do the math on that. You end up about 26 millimeters diagonal. So you could take 2 of those Blackmagic, I think they're the BMPCC 6Ks. If you take 2 of those, it would be the size of one of these brand new Sony sensors, the global sensors that they're putting out. So, are you understanding the size of this thing? Now, think about capturing that data, okay, 127 megapixels at a diagonal of 57 millimeters, as big as a Fujifilm GFX 100, let's call it, and capturing all that data like this. Not scanning. Forget about scanning. Global. Whole entire sensor at a time. That's why the sensor is made for industry. Think about the cost. If Canon is doing at 9 megapixels with their C700 at $30,000, what do you think that would be required to drive this chip? The hardware. I mean, and this is why when you hear some of this stuff, it just sounds just ludicrous, right? That people could come up with just crap that just makes no sense. It just absolutely makes no sense. The math doesn't work out. We don't have anything right now that would be accessible to you and I that would be able to capture that. That's why I've always said that Canon would be able to do a global shutter if they wanted to in their new R1 if they use the same type of principle that they use in their 1Ds, and that is low megapixels. If they don't go 8K, they don't forget about 4K and all the rest of the stuff, and they go low megapixels, 12 megapixels, maybe even pushing 18 megapixels, right? They could possibly do it, but it would be so expensive. It wouldn't be on par with like the brand new Nikon coming out, the Z9, or the Sony Alpha 1. It's not going to be that $6,000, $6,500 price range. It's going to be more than double that. So it's not even coming out at a small amount of megapixels. Forget about 85. It's just ridiculous. It's stupid stuff, right? So that's why I wanted to talk to you guys about it, because you know, sometimes we have to just look at things and boil them down a little bit and kind of get an understanding of what they're talking about on some of these forums and these blogs and these people talking a bunch of nonsense that they have not a clue of what they're talking about, that is physically not possible as of right now at an affordable rate. It's just not there yet. Now, back to my original statement. The next generation camera will have a global shutter in it. Will it be next year? Possibly, maybe not, but it will have a small amount of megapixels. It will be a smaller sensor. They probably won't do it on a full frame right off the bat. They'll probably use like an APS-C, right? Maybe a Super 35 or something like that. If they move into a full frame, what happens? Like I said, the amount of diagonal size of that sensor, the amount of data that comes through that pipeline is a ton more, and you'll need like quad processors in these cameras to be able to handle it. Think about the money involved here. It's a lot. It is a lot. So anyways, I wanted to talk to you guys about it a little bit and get into the whole idea of global shutter, what it is, what it isn't. Is it coming yet? No. Is it coming in the future? Yes. Hell yeah. All right. They will revolutionize photography. Okay. Especially when it comes to video. And like I've always said, that if you are a camera manufacturer and you put out a camera and the camera has unbelievable photo capability and the video is lacking, you could just forget it. You could just forget it. The YouTube people would just lose it. There would be forums blowing up. That camera is crap. Today we are a hybrid photographer, videographer meld of the two. Hybrid cameras are where it's at, and all of the manufacturers know it, and that's why they all throw 4K and now 8K into their cameras. Do they want to do that? No. They turn into overheating, melting balls of lava. This is a ton of data to be able to handle. They would love to just be able to make a photo camera, right? But they can't. They're not allowed. We won't allow them. Okay, there was a day when we would buy video cameras and we would buy photo cameras. And you would be a videographer or you would be a photographer. Those days are gone. That line is blurred. Okay, there's no more black and white. It's gray down the middle, and all of the gray people want hybrid cameras. So it's not a possibility for these manufacturers to do anything different than what they're doing. So, round robining back to the beginning, global shutters will be that next generation camera. It's just not here as of yet. And when you start hearing about global shutters that are 60, 70 megapixels, 100 megapixels, just call BS and leave it at that. It's just not there. They are not able to do it with the machinery that they have right now. Can you imagine the amount of heat that would be produced to capture a 57 millimeter diagonal sensor, full frame? That is a medium format, right? Full, every single dot, this fast. Can you imagine 24 frames, 30, 60, 120 frames per second? You would have a massive duct, an inlet, and an exhaust just blowing air in that camera so it doesn't just nuke itself. Anyways, guys, I hope you got something out of this. If you got even a little bit, throw this video a big thumbs up. That would be very helpful. And if you would like, click this little bell icon over here so whenever I go live or come out with brand new content like this, you'll be notified of it immediately. Also, put your comments in the comment area below this video. Let's have a discussion. I want to know what you think about global shutters versus a rolling shutter, which we currently use. What do you think? Do you think global is the next generation? And how long do you think it'll be until it gets here? Also, when we're done talking down here, go over to community.JCristina.com. Our creative Discord server. Go check it out, community.JCristina.com. A lot of great people over there. You'll get a ton of information from these non-trolls that we see over there, unlike some places where it's just filled with people just bickering. There's none of that. All just great information, great people. Once again, community.jcristina.com. And if you want to contribute to the channel, click the little join button down here and you'll become a member. And at that point, I'll be able to give you perks. You could provide the channel with $1, $2 a month, whatever you want to help out. That would be much appreciated. And finally, head over to my website, JCristina.com, where you can find all the photography tools that I've made for you and me over the years, and hopefully there's something there that you might like. And if there is, please pick it up and support me and my family. That would be awesome and much appreciated. That's it, guys. I'm out of here for yet another video. I'm going to go finish my tea. Many blessings to each and every one of you. Stay safe and stay healthy.